Hello and good day. I'm David Boles, and this is Boles TV. Hey, it's BOLES.television. Coming to you live and in person, high noon, from the east coast of these United States. Now, as you can tell, it's a little bit of a different setup today. Now, my philosophy of living is this, and I'll share it with you right now. Expect everything to be broken, and expect everything to not work. And if you have that philosophy, you're going to live a very long and happy life because you'll never be disappointed in anything or in anyone. So as you can see, I have turned back on the autofocus for our camera. And the reason I did that is this: when I show you things, or when the Jana Marie shows you things, we go like this. And with autofocus on, you can read it. Naming a necessity. And even if you want to be bold about it, you can go like this, and you can actually read words on the page. Before, when we had fixed focus, which meant the focal length was like right about here, I was in focus, but when we do this part would be out of focus. So it's very hard to show things because then we go like this, and now the camera has me in focus. Now, what was interesting when we were doing this test just now is when I had, the book like this, you could read the book, right? You can read the palm of my hand, and then I take away my hand and my face should go back sharp. And it did just now. Now, the problem we've had in the past with this autofocus is it's very slow, meaning it's not fast when you're signing like this. So if you're signing, is it going in and out of focus? These are questions we have to try to answer, and there have been a couple of updates to our streaming software and to our camera. So maybe going like this, going out of the plane of your signing space, it's not going to jump around too much. But see, now it's in perfect focus here with my hands. And my lights in the background go blurry, and then they're not blurry. When I go like this, they get blurry with my hands in focus. So I go back here. Now, as I was practicing this before the show started, I noticed that when I took away the book, that my face did not go back into focus. Now, it just did. So that's good. Now, maybe it just has to get used to what we're doing here, as if it's, AI or something. Now, the other thing you may notice, and we're going to be testing this focus thing throughout the show. Dad, Mom. It's not terrible. The other thing you may have noticed is it's a little darker in here, which I like. Hard to get that effect. Doesn't have anything to do with the focus issue. And my face. Usually I talk about my hair. The hair is looking very good. My face, skin. The face is always ugly. The skin is getting better. I seem to have this wonderful glow about me. It's not makeup. It's not powder. It's not the lighting. Nothing has changed. The last time we did the show, all of this was pretty whited out. And I don't think it's the focus of the camera. I am wearing a beautiful blue shirt, which theoretically should bring out the blue in my gray eyes. But what I've noticed about life, hey, it's a Jana Marie. I have beautiful skin. Today, it looks like I have beautiful skin. Normally, during the show, my face is gray, green, patchy, red splotches, but not today. Today we're looking good, okay? Are we in focus? That is the question. That's what we're testing today, focus. So this effect, this darkening effect that I love, I believe is caused by my shirt. Oh, thank you, Jana Marie. She loves the color, all colors of my eyes. And for a long time, I thought I had hazel eyes, and my eye doctor said, no, your eyes are gray. And that explains why my eyes are sometimes blue and sometimes green and sometimes a whole kaleidoscope of color. Because gray just takes whatever color's around and puts it right in your eye. So today I'm wearing blue, one of my favorite colors of blue, baby blue. I also look really good in royal blue. And I figured, I think what's happening is the light that I have not changed is bouncing off my beautiful shirt. And the shirt is reflecting the light, so the camera says, okay, darken the back. Because usually I wear a black shirt as my streaming uniform. Not just dark, but black. So I have with me a black towel that I have not tested until this moment because it just struck me about a minute before we went live that I wonder if that's why I look so beautiful today is because of my blue shirt, is faking out my camera and making me look more beautiful by default. So I'm going to pull this up to perhaps imitate, oh, here we go, imitate my normal black shirt. And we're going to see how much this changes the whole look of what we're trying to do here. See, there we go. The splotchiness is back, the gray color is back, the green is here, the hair maybe not looking as good as I thought. Right there, it's out of control. The back is now bright, lighted. I don't like it that bright. I can see my expressions better with the bright light. Does it make any difference with the focusing? A little bit. Maybe a little bit easier to focus with a black top on. Naming a necessity right there. Goes back, yes. And then I use the magic trick. Take it away very slowly. So I guess the lesson is, if you don't want to be ugly on your live stream, wear a light colored shirt. Now, there's so many things we have to discuss today. I hope we get to it all, but we might not. Who knows? We'll start off with today in scraping. This is my new thing. People talk about AI, going out, scraping images, transforming those images into something new, and people are offended. It's stealing. It's not inspirational. It's the end of the world. And we're going to talk about AI later in the show. But then there are people who just go out and steal and copy your stuff and put it on their website to make a little bit of money. So here's an example, again, of a scrape. A scrape is when you send a bot out to scrape content from other websites, blogs, and then you put it on your website to make money. So here we go with a Gresh guitar, known as the orange one. And oh, look down here. Again, not the same one we talked about last time. The Gretsch G5120 Electromatic Review by yours truly, David Boles. $41. Now, this is a $3,000 guitar. You know it's not $41. I don't know what scheme they're running here. Why you would choose a size? It's a clothing site. But what they're doing is this. They're taking, when people do a search on the Google, wherever, for egress G5120, my article appears. So what these scraper people are trying to do is to use the same title, the same phrase that I use in my article as my title, and they reformat it so they can sell a 3,000 guitar for $41, but you can't even order it that way because you don't choose a size. They just want you to go to this page thinking you're going to get my review, and you don't. And they're thinking in their minds, oh, well, this is not what I was looking for, but I guess I'll stick around and, buy some women's clothes. I guess that's the rationale. So here we go, June 7th, 2010. Over 100 years ago, I wrote this article. Same title, right? The Gretsch G5120 Electromatic Review. And here's the image I have that they also scraped and put on their website. So here's my very nice, long, luscious review, along with some fantastic videos, and I'm glad that they're still there. There's the beautiful and talented Jen Marie Sweetheart, who liked the article. And 35 comments. Now, isn't that ridiculous? 35 comments, but only one like. I think this may have been before we were showing likes or likability on our blog. Hey, the scraping continues. Oh, look, it's the David Boles Human Meme Podcast. Now, this is in Turkish, as you can see here. And this is a Deezer website, Deezer. So Deezer, that I don't believe I have any connection with in Turkey, is somehow picking up the RSS feed for my podcast and reapplying it, reusing it, putting it on their website. I guess so they can sell advertising off of my podcast. I don't know really what's going on. It's very strange. Also in Today in Scraping, is some website that is CIENCE, science. So I get this notification, hey, here you are, young man. And so I click on the link. And I see David Boles, Burleson, Texas. Okay, now there are like 10, 15, 100 David Boleses all around the nation, not even counting the world. And they all seem to be online now. And some of them are dying, and some of them have dying relatives. So any kind of death notice that has David Boles in it, I get notified. So this I thought was interesting. Okay, David Boles in Burleson, Texas. Okay, and then here's where it gets weird. The website of David Boles in Burleson, Texas is davidboles.com with a link. Now, that link goes to my website. David Boles Brands. That's davidboles.com. David Boles, Boles TV, Boles Bells, Boles Books, Boles Blogs, David Boles Human Meme, David Boles University, Script Professor, Hardcore ASL, and SOS ASL. Okay, so there it is, right there. That's where davidboles.com takes you. So this does not go with this. But again, I guess science doesn't care because they just want to send somebody to their page when they're looking for a David Boles. I've never lived in Texas. I would never live in Texas. So this is even more especially confusing and sort of disappointing for me. Get full access? I don't know what that means. So here we go. Headquarters of davidboles.com, not true, is Burleson, Texas, not true. Employees, 1 to 10. Revenue, under $1 million. They're making it up. The owner, here he is. There's my name, and then it just brings you right back to this page. Similar contacts to me: Energy, Front Wheel Drive, Strange, Tech Alliance. You are signed out. Join now. Now, what is David Boles' official website? Click on that. Is davidboles.com, which is not true. I don't use that as anything official for anything. It's just my name with links. That's the whole website. How do I contact David Boles? Well, here's his phone number. And I guess they think they got it from the website. So none of this is true. That ain't me. But people who don't know, people who are looking for me, people who want to try to connect with me, might very well be fooled by this sort of ongoing viciousness. Now, speaking of names, I discovered something rather interesting. ORCID, ORCID. So it's ORCID, ORCID. And this is my ORCID number. Now, I saw this on someone else's profile. They had an ORCID ID for their writing and work. And I thought, well, what is that? I've never heard of it before. So I clicked on the link, and it took me here to this website, ORCID ID. Okay. So it's sort of like a publication identity service for people who write books, people who write scholarly research articles. So it's asked me, do you want to sign up? Do you know who you are? And so I signed up. And of course, there's a David B. Boles who's written all kinds of articles. That's not me. There's another older, that David B. Boles was publishing in the 80s. There's another David Boles, DZ Boles, publishing in the 60s. Those aren't me. So I log in and it says, hey, are you these two David Boleses? And I said no. And then it had two other entries for a David Boles. Maybe this is you. And they said, click and find out. So I clicked on it, and it was just empty, nothing there. And I clicked on the second name, and it was empty, nothing there. So I thought, well, I don't want to say I'm either one of those because I might not be who the system thinks I am. So I said, well, set up my account all new. And it seems the part of this ID is that people can find you via the service, and if you apply for grants or something to do with like a university, you can include this ORCID ID to say, of all of the 100 David Boleses in the world, this one happens to be me. So it's like an ID. It's like an identity service. So here you can enter. I briefly filled this out yesterday, just sure I could show you today. So you fill in your name, you verify your address, your biography, the emails that you don't mind getting contacted on. You can add websites and social links, other IDs. You can link your GitHub account if you have one. You can put in your own keywords, and these are everything you can just type in yourself. So if people are looking for you, this is where they might find you. Countries, United States, activities, employment, education, qualifications. It was interesting that when you fill this in, you do a little search, and I typed in, Nebraska, and University of Nebraska, link would pop right up. Everything pre-filled in, so they must be, I think, a signatory of ORCID, because when I did the same thing for Columbia University in the city of New York, not so lucky. Columbia University was listed, but when you clicked on it to be your school, nothing got filled in. You had to fill it all in yourself. Invited positions and distinctions, membership and service. So you can fill in all this stuff if you want to. Funding is very important, especially if you're teaching in public health and you have to find a way to pay your own salary. And then this is the most interesting part, where you can search several databases and do a search on your name, and they'll pop up results from scholarly articles, publications, journals, and books. Are you this David Boles? Did you write this article? Did you write this book? And so you say yes to the right things, and then it gets added to your profile. So this is all very slick. And these were the books that were listed in one of the databases. A lot of them are foreign, Asian, one specifically for Japanese authors only. And I found one that actually had all my books in it. I can't remember which one it was, but I thought it was extremely delightful. And then when you're done sort of filling out everything, you can click this, preview your public record. So if people go to the ORCID website, you can see what people will see about you. And it's, properly formatted. It has links that people can click on and go visit you. Boles TV, and your education and your works. So the things you don't fill out don't get included in your public profile. Only things you want other people to see are included in your public profile. So that's all very neat and very happy and quite lovely. And now we're going to take a very brief 2-minute break. I'll return in a moment, and we're going to talk about Jewish matchmaking. I shall return in a moment. So I'm going to put up, let's see, what is it? This? I'll put this up. Updates, yeah. I'll turn off my microphone, and I will return very shortly. And hey, we're back. Very quick little break. Something going on outside. So now we're back from break. Hey, look at this. I still think it looks pretty good, but maybe this is better. I don't know. We'll have to figure out for the long term. If we want to be, the color's better, but this hides everything better. It's a magic trick. So over the weekend, the Jan and Marie and I watched an interesting show. Highly recommended by a good friend of ours. And the name of the show is Jewish Matchmaking. Now, growing up in Nebraska in the Midwest, did not have a lot of Jewish friends. Not by choice or divinity, but just, I think, because of proximity. There are not a lot of Jews in the Midwest. Now, there were temples. The old University of Nebraska Theater building used to be a temple. It's called the Temple Building. There was another beautiful apartment building that used to be a temple. And it's a small building close to the university campus. And the most magnificent thing is the people who lived in the top floor of this former church, now apartment building, had their entire ceiling as a stained glass window from the church or the temple, whatever it was. And it was the most magnificent thing you've ever seen. And the people who lived there knew that, and people who knew that they were in that apartment would bring their friends over to show them the incredible, beautiful ceiling. And I remember a friend of mine took me over there. She lived there at the time in a different apartment. And she went up there and said, "Are you guys home?" And they said, "Yes." And they said, "Hey." So, okay. So what we did is we went up to their apartment. I think it was the third floor, walked all the way up. My friend opened the door, and there were like 3 people in the living room. And they were all bathed in this beautiful light that was shining down on them from the stained glass, watching TV. And I just looked at it. I looked at them. You know, they waved, I waved. I could tell they were watching a movie. And then I looked up. Their whole ceiling was a stained glass window, and it was curved. It wasn't a flat piece of stained. It was a dome of stained glass. I've never seen anything like it before. Or since. And so then my friend said, "Okay." And I said, "Oh." And then she closed the door and we left. So I was there watching this delight for maybe 45 seconds. And I really did feel we were interrupting them. But I know that when you rent a place like that, you know you're going to be interrupted because it's the most magnificent piece of art that people have hanging as their ceiling in the living room. And then, you move to New York, and there are a lot of Jews in New York. And there are observant Jews, strict Jews, used to be Jews, people who were not Jewish become Jewish. You learn some of the rules. If the mother is Jewish, the children are Jewish no matter what. And as we learned from this show we were watching, that there are 2, I don't even know what we call them, systems, divisions, strains of Jews, Jewishness. The Ashkenazi Jew, who tends to be European, and the Sephardic Jew, who tends to be more, I guess, Asian. And it's very important. And the Ashkenazi don't really get along with the Sephardic and the other way around, but they do because we're all Jews, but you're not the same Jew. A lot of rules. A lot of religions do have a lot of rules. And the decision on if you are Sephardic or Ashkenazi is decided by, according to this show, the parent that is the father. The parent that is the mother decides if the baby is Jewish or not Jewish, and then the father's line determines Sephardic or not, and the mother's line does not matter. That's how I understand it as a godforsaken Methodist from Nebraska. So the show is called Jewish Matchmaking. It's on Netflix. Over the weekend, we watched all 8 episodes, half an hour each. So that's 4 hours of our lifetime that we can never get back again. And the idea, I guess there was originally an Indian dating show like this that people thought was very interesting and culturally challenging and okay. And so they decided to go ahead and have this, which was made like a year ago, which is Jewish Matchmaking. And there are 8 episodes. Aliza Ben Shalom is, I guess, the matchmaker. She's the host, if that's what you want to call it. When Jewish singles are ready to get serious, they call on Aliza Ben Shalom to find their perfect romantic match from across the U.S. and Israel. And here are the episodes. And we watched them all. And here's what I take away from this. The Jewish religion is completely fantastic and fascinating. This image, I don't think is very representative of the show. This is like the last episode. This is a black woman who is Jewish because of her mother, and this is a kind of a nerdy white guy who is also a Jew. And here are some takeaways that I have from that show. The matchmaker is really quite a wonderful and delightful person. At least for episodes 1 and 2, where she explains her mission and what she does and how she's doing, this important work. And then by episode 8, she's saying exactly the same things. And when you look at the arc of the story of her matchmaking from episode 1 to episode 8, you just can't get over the fact that it was a total and complete failure. She didn't hook up anybody. No marriages. And this was filmed, a year and a half ago. So you'd think if there were successes, there would have been some sort of update, added. They got married a month ago, or they have 2 children and they're married for something like that. There's no update. And there's no connection. Which might be the way things go today. How sad things are that you really can't find a connection any longer. But what was the most interesting thing is the people she was finding matches for were generally unlikable. You just watched them and really didn't like them. Not because of their religion. The religion's fantastic. The traditional rituals, great. It's their personality. You understand why they don't have anybody. You understand why they're not connected. So then she goes out, this matchmaker goes out and finds what turns out to be really sort of wonderful people who are much nicer, kinder, smarter, better people than the people that she is trying to match them with originally. The consumer, the client, right? So the people coming into the show to date these people are overwhelmingly, generally speaking, much more attractive and interesting than the people that Eliza is trying to match. Which makes for a very frustrating show because you have these lead people, at least in the early episodes, that you really don't like very much. And then later on, you get this woman, and there was another person who was funny. Stuart was his name. Funny guy, wonderful. You'd love to have him as a friend. And there was one woman that I found most fascinating out of all of them. And she was 30 years old and very strict, super observant. Most of them sort of, respect Shabbat in many ways. Sundown Friday to, sundown Saturday. Everything's off. So this woman, as a Jewish friend of mine would say, is a super Jew. Doesn't mean you're observant. It means that everything that is good and right and moral in the world belongs to you and you alone, and you will fix the world and bend it to your will. And my friend was self-identifying as the original super Jew. And he told me this when we were walking on the street. And it just happened to be the Diamond District, which doesn't have anything to do with this story. And we were, talking about something, and we were following a guy who was handing out pamphlets, flyers, which is very common in a big city. And this guy was not handing them to people. He was, holding them out to people. And if the people didn't take it, the guy would drop the piece of paper and it would fall on the floor, on the sidewalk. And we watched, as we're talking, my friend and I, this guy dropping these papers. Well, okay, that's New York. Well, my friend didn't agree with that. He yelled at the guy, said, "Stop throwing the papers." The guy stopped, threw all the rest of the papers he had in his hand. He threw them in a garbage can. And my friend walked back and picked up every single piece of paper that guy dropped over the last block, which I would say is like 150 pieces of paper. Individual, and my friend's kind of a big fat guy, bending down, picking up the pieces of paper, throwing them away. And I was shocked by the whole thing. And, he didn't ask me to pick up the pieces of paper, but I did. And we helped him. We threw it all away. And I kind of looked at him like, what was that about? And he said, well, the guy was littering. And I don't want that in New York City. I asked him to stop. And I went back and cleaned up after him. And then that's when he told me that, yes, I am super Jew, and this is what I believe, and this is how I behave, and I always try to do the right thing. Now, if you knew the guy, you knew that maybe 70% of that was true, because he turned out to sort of be a big fake and a phony. But in that moment, it was an interesting learning moment for me, and I've always sort of been wary of saying the word super Jew, because it may be used out of context and people might not always understand what you're trying to say, which sometimes is nothing new. So in this Jewish matchmaking show, there is this 30-year-old woman, doesn't appear to ever had a serious relationship, let alone a boyfriend. She says she's a successful, marketing person. I can't remember. But the point is that she is very strict, she is very religious, very observant, and she will not compromise on her religious beliefs as a Jewish woman. And it's also very interesting when the matchmaker, meets with these people to match up, that the mother of the person is usually always there, observing, giving their feedback. It's very interesting. So the matchmaker, finds this really charming, fun, funny, smart, devoted Jewish man. And I think he's maybe 26 and she's 30, so there's a little bit of an age difference there. And she says she knows that she's old in the Jewish world because where she was raised, if you're not married with kids by 22, you're not doing it right. And, if you're a 22-year-old young man, you're not looking to marry a 30-year-old woman. You're looking to marry someone 22 or younger because youth is very valuable because they want to have children. So this woman knows that her time is running out, but she doesn't seem to have any sense of urgency or desperation. She's perfectly happy with who she is and how she is, which is great. We all should be so lucky. And so this young man comes in and, they go out and they're laughing and they have a good time and they're eating ice cream. And, then things that happen behind our backs as the viewers gets revealed to us as their story progresses. And it seems that when he dropped her off the first night after their date, that she did some kind of religious ritual, praying. He wasn't very specific about it. And he thought that was a little strange because he didn't think she was that strict, where she, prayed 3 times a day. And then we see this kind of invented scene where he's there talking to his rabbi, which is a wonderful, wonderful scene. And he's, expressing himself and saying, look, I don't know if this is really going to work out because she is very, very hardcore religiously, and I'm not. I'm sort of a fun guy who, jokes around, and I'm perfectly happy to be observant, but I know that I cannot be as strictly observant as she is demanding that I be. And the rabbi was very nice, and he said, well, look, you can change, she can change. There's a negotiation in marriage. Don't throw it all away unless you really know. And then they kind of skip time, and later we find out that the two of them had a conversation that we were not privy to, where they both kind of said, look, you're hardcore, I'm not. You're too soft, I'm hardcore. Let's call the whole thing off. And they just decided not to see each other anymore, which was very weird because everything that we saw was perfect. They were the perfect couple. And in some ways, I feel very relieved for the young man because he knew he was getting into something that he could not tolerate, something that concerned him that he could not be a part of. And the young woman, he just had to, in many ways, pity her because, as it comes across in the show, she is so rigid and so strict that she is using her religious beliefs as a shield so that she doesn't have to commit to a man or a woman, not a woman, as a woman. She uses her very strict upbringing, belief system, as an excuse to not have a relationship because nobody in her eyes is good enough for her. Now you watch and you think, well, who would be good enough for her? And you think, well, it's not going to be a 22-year-old because they're not going to be interested in her. And you're thinking, well, it would be someone who's older, 50, 60, 72-year-old, strict religious man who has already had his children and maybe widowed or alone, but very strict, very observant. And he would, I guess, accept such a woman, unmarried and untethered at the age of 30. But is that the life she wants? I don't think so. Everything that I read is that I read from her in watching the show is that she doesn't want to be married. She's not interested in having children. She's perfectly happy living alone with her mother for as long as it takes. And the longer time goes on, the easier it will be for her to say, no one lived up to my expectation. I don't really need children. I'm doing fine on my own. I'm a successful person. I've now reached the age where I cannot have children. And it's interesting to know that once you hit 35, in the medical community, you are considered geriatric. A woman having a baby at 35 is called a geriatric pregnancy. So this woman who, claims she wants children, wants to have a family of her own and get married is 30. And now she's probably 31 or 32. And I think if she were married or had somebody, they would have updated her story and said, hey, she found somebody and they're married. So you ask yourself, why are these people on the show? There's another guy who, lives in Tel Aviv, which I guess is the party town. If you're a serious Jew, you live in Jerusalem. But if you're a party Jew and a F-boy, as they call them, then you live in Tel Aviv. And there's this pretty boy who doesn't want to settle down, dates beautiful women. His mother is some kind of ambassador. He doesn't want to settle down with one woman. And that's the feeling you get from these people. These people want to be on the show to talk about their lives, and they don't really care if they get married or not. There doesn't seem to be an urgency among any of them, which is fine, but why go to a matchmaker if you're not serious about finding a way to be matched? So that's my rant on Netflix's show, Jewish Matchmaking. Now, there's one other thing I want to talk to you about today, but I don't know if I can get there because it's been down all day. And I see the website is now back up, which is just fantastic. So I'm going to talk about that right now. When I was a young man, I did a lot of theater and I performing, and then later on wrote, produced, directed. All of this in the Midwest. And I also was in operas, believe it or not. Albert Herring, Così fan tutti, Carmen, maybe a couple of others. And these were not big roles, small roles, part of the chorus, but you're there and you're learning, and it's not in English. So I've discovered the Metropolitan Opera in New York City has a streaming service. And it's like watching television. It's not one, static shot. These are close-ups and rolling cameras. It's like a big TV show, and it's absolutely fantastic. And so yesterday, I watched my very first one, and it was an unforgettable experience. It was La Traviata from last season. I believe this was October, November. I think it was November. It was a version that they recorded. And La Traviata means the fallen woman. And so a story about a very sick woman who gets wooed by a man. They get married. And the man's father comes in and says to the woman, you have shamed our family and shamed our marriage. My younger daughter can't get married because of you and your reputation. Please leave my son and get out. And she does, moves to Paris, doesn't have any money, she's still dying. Her husband tracks her down, finds her. She says, I'm so sorry. He says, I'm sorry. The father comes in, says he's sorry, and she dies. It's a wonderful tragic opera by Verdi. 3 captivating sopranos with many previous triumphs to their names. Star is a self-sacrificing courtesan, Violetta. And she is really terrific. Now, the one that I saw was with Nadine. She's the one that's on demand. And she is really frighteningly spectacular. Now, this is the website for the Metropolitan Opera. On demand. The house opens, right? Act 1 is 35 minutes. Then you have a 30-minute intermission. So when you go to the opera, you're not sitting there. It's like a 4 or 5 hour experience. And now I understand why they have several conductors and several people. You can't do this all the time and expect to live a life that isn't going to kill you. So that's why they switch off. And then Act 2 is an hour. And then you get a 20-minute intermission. And the intermission, you go and you have a drink, you go to the bathroom, you get something to eat, and you come back. And Act 3 is 30 minutes. So if you're just watching this on demand, it's like a 2-hour show. And it goes by very quickly. And the singing is absolutely spectacular. There's dancing with matadors. And here are the conductors. This is the one that we saw on the on-demand. Here are the Violettas, Nadine, Ermanella, and Angel Blue. Now, this story is all about Violetta. Nobody else matters. She's really the only soprano. And man, Nadine is just terrific. She can really, really sing. From Florida, right? I mean, you'd think, oh my goodness, a talent like this must be from Italy, must be from a European country. How could you possibly be born in the United States and have a voice like that? But I'm telling you, if you watch just the on-demand, and you get very tight close-ups of her face. Now, this is why I would love to see an opera in person. But the Met in New York is very big. I like to sit in the front row of all my shows because I want to see the facial expression. I want to see the sweat on their brow. But the opera people prefer to sit in the balcony, in the back, have the opera glasses. And you're supposed to get the big vision of the show. You see the set, the lights, everyone moving. But in an opera, is there a lot of stage choreography, direction? Not really. The whole point of an opera is one person or two people going to the edge of the stage and singing. So I'm wondering if I were in the theater itself, instead of watching on television, if it would be the same experience, because the up-close relationship that you create with Nadine is absolutely spectacularly stunning. She cries as she is singing these impossible notes because she's relating to the story of her life as this character, in losing her love, in being rejected, and being misunderstood. Now, being able to cry and sing impossibly high notes is the most amazing thing you'll ever see. Because most of us, when we cry ugly, our nose gets plugged, and we can't talk, and we're sneezing and blowing our nose. Not Nadine. She has tears coming out of her eyes. And then the scene at the end where she dies, with the drama of the music and the lighting and the snow, and she's leaving the world. You're not going to see that every day anyplace else. So I highly recommend this experience with the Metropolitan Opera online. You can get a very good deal, especially if you're in the tri-state area. It seems like they, take a third off your subscription, and you can watch all kinds of shows. They have audio recordings, they have HD video, they have regular video. Luciano Pavarotti is in many of these videos, and you're just going to be shocked by the beauty of it all. Let's see, here's some pictures. There she is. And La Traviata was 1853, first written. Really, not that long ago. This is not the 1600s. This is like 1850. And these are the lovers. And they sing beautifully together. He compliments her. She compliments him. This is the father of the young man saying, you have to leave, do the right thing, sacrifice yourself for the goodness of the rest of us. And she does. These are the dancing matadors. It's just really interesting and spectacular. So even if you don't think, oh, what's opera? Oh, it's all this fancy singing. It's more than that. It's about the human condition and longing and mourning. And these operas become inspirations for other things that come later in the human evolution of a culture. We had a terrific day today. I thank you so much for being here. I appreciate your time and your moments of thought and conditioning. You know where to find me if you need me. Online at boles.xyz. We're on Discord, and you can find me an email. Thank you so much for being here. I'll see you next time. Bye.